It is becoming increasingly important to help business executives understand what's actually possible with the AI technology we're seeing today and where it may go in the future. So at DPHumanX, we decided to put it all to the test, drink our own Kool-Aid, and tackle a ground-up redesign of our corporate website. We were able to actually do it for less than $1,000 over 27 hours and 5 days, all with one person teamed effectively with AI. Today, we're going to talk about the business use case and the impacts, the way we did it, and what we think overall this should unlock for business leaders. So, this project started several months ago when we decided we were going to expand our offerings and tackle new things in the market, deliver new services, expand what we're doing with clients. We also decided that because it's about a year and a half since the last website went up, almost 2 years, it was probably a good time for a refresh, but maybe a refresh wasn't enough. We needed to go one step further. If you believe all the hype, it should be possible to build for an SMB or even potentially an enterprise a website using the vibe coding tools that exist today and are possible for anyone to access. As they exist currently, not what they will be, but what could you do with them today? Could you have one person actually do that who does not have all the requisite skills to build a comprehensive website with the tools that are available? So we sat down, we decided we were going to approach it using the DHX relevance model, the same relevance model we work with clients to help understand. And we defined our context and our relevance and understood very clearly what the vision was. Not only what we wanted the website to do, but how we wanted it to look, the messaging, the imagery, the interactivity. We thought through it from a user standpoint. What would I want if I were to go to the website? Then we sat down and we took the existing content from the existing website and we worked with our custom GPT named Mickey, which we had the opportunity to iterate with and work with her as a teammate. So I went back and forth with her, iterated on ways to revise the content, come up with new ways of presenting ideas. We wanted to make sure that we were ideally polishing it up, but not just, doing a refresh, really kind of doing it as a new direction. And I did that by going through an iterative process with Mickey, and then of course fixing and going through and tweaking what I liked and what I didn't. Now, keep in mind, Mickey's been trained extensively on DeepHumanX, our thinking, our models, our approaches. So this was a much quicker process than if I had just been doing it with a standard GPT. And so once I had the content, the flow, the sections, kind of the structure in my head, I understood and started to think about what the visuals were going to be and put those together. We went and identified what pieces of the existing website I wanted to repurpose and what I needed to find new assets for, and I put it all together in a Google Drive. This was a process where I went back and forth between ChatGPT, our custom GPT Mickey, as well as using Gemini's deep research functionality in the 2.5 Pro model, which is mind-blowing, to be honest. And then iterating through these to get the content and the research up to date, make sure we were incorporating the latest and greatest thinking. As I started this, I looked at Lovable, Bolt, and Replit. These are the three vibe coding platforms that I have settled on. And for me, I decided it was going to be Lovable. I can't really give you a reason why. I looked at the three. I didn't go watch any videos on them. I just kind of looked at what it had done, some of their outputs, what was possible. There are more than enough videos out there on the differences between the three. When I went into Lovable, after 4 prompts, I had a generic, polished website with some content that we had developed, icons, but it was all very base level. It was kind of median of what you would expect an LLM that had been trained on. And so I needed to go back and forth with Lovable. I started to iterate, prompt Lovable to get to where I wanted to, but I became frustrated. It was more of a limitation of the way I was prompting Lovable than it was with Lovable itself. It turns out Lovable doesn't like the same type of prompting that, say, Gemini or ChatGPT does. And so what I needed to understand was it was the way I was structuring my prompts, the completeness of my thoughts that I needed to tweak. So I spent time going through some cycles doing that and figured out that a best class approach for me was going to be to iteratively work between Gemini, Claude, and Lovable. And I started using ChatGPT to write prompts for me that I would feed to Lovable after I had worked with Gemini to go deeper into some of the core coding challenges and have Claude validate, right? I used Gemini as my teammate, was my brainstorming partner, was a coach, if you will, on areas that I don't have expertise in, UI, UX design, database design, things of that nature. And then once I had it where I wanted it with Gemini, sometimes I would have Gemini write the prompt or have ChatGPT write the prompt. And I would get it very clear for Lovable and was able to then make Lovable execute things in a much quicker fashion to achieve the results I wanted. Things like improved animations, different background images, scrolling effects, YouTube integration, CRM integration, as well as other elements of the website. When it came to building the ROI calculator, which could be a project in itself, and we'll do a separate video on that because it opens up additional interesting conversations, I also went through a much more in-depth process of this iterative approach. It turned out to become much quicker than I had originally thought. I had to make sure my thought process and vision was clear. And I would use then the results that came out from Lovable to give to Gemini to interrogate and then to iterate. This way, I minimized the amount of burn I was doing on my Lovable credits, and it was able to make it do things much more effectively and much faster. The net result was at the end of 27 hours, across 5 days, and for less than $600, we have a website that, in our opinion, my opinion, is 95% there. I still want to have UX UI developers double check. I still want to have backend developers double check the structure of it. I'll have some marketing members of the team look at it, see what they have, and we'll polish it. But it's 95% there, and we may be the only ones that see any issues with it at this point. So it's out there. We're doing content refinement and getting prepped, right? We spent about 8.5 hours with initial prompting with Lovable, back and forth with Gemini and Claude and ChatGPT to inspect code, to get that kind of UI UX development done. On the website structure, content flow, front end development, the ROI calculator, we spent a lot of time with Gemini using the deep research functionality, and then discussing the logic behind the calculations, making sure that we were implementing it correctly, that it worked, that it's certain thresholds of certain things, that the messages are displayed different. We wanted it to be more than just a generic ROI calculator. And that was honestly a big chunk of the time. So I spent probably another 5.9, maybe 6 hours working with that. And then another of that amount of time on the backend database calls, webhooks, CRM integration, QA. And when I look at it, it helped me remove the need to rely on other people with the deep expertise to get to this point. As I said, we'll still have the humans validate, but as I was iterating, after I had all the brainstorming sessions, internally with our team, and we agreed on a direction, I was able to execute this in 27 hours. And at the end of it, when I look at it, there's some big takeaways that I think are really important for business leaders. First and foremost, time saved, which is what everybody's looking at. How do I increase productivity? But that's just the starting point of it. Of course, there's the dollars saved. We saved thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. But there were things that were important, like making sure we were managing my time. I had to have dedicated time blocks. I had to be able to get into a state of flow, make sure I was really focused on that. I needed to cycle between the tools. It was not a linear approach. This was very much like brainstorming with a teammate. I went through the lessening and the define exercise, which is part of the DHX relevance model, because my initial assumption was that I wasn't gonna be able to do this. I don't have the skill set. Don't know how to build a database, don't know how to code UI UX, and a whole bunch of other elements to create a responsive website. One of the ways I did that was by consistently asking Lovable to question its own thinking and show me the output, show me the code, so I could then validate it with another tool. And while it may sound odd because we're talking about such a compressed time frame of execution, but patience, the state of flow, became critical to the speed and the success. I needed to make sure I wasn't prompting as a reaction, but I was proactively prompting with a really polished and executed approach to my own thinking and bringing it to life. I also had to make sure that the preparation was there. There have been multiple posts I could point you to that talk about making sure you have your infrastructure, your data set up correctly in order to get the most out of AI. And that was part of us preparing the content, making sure we understood what we wanted the visuals to be. I used tools like Canva to create new assets where we needed them as I was iterating. It was based off of our brand guide. I used Canva's AI tool to come up with new ideas, visualizations, so on and so forth. And I was able to use them in a very iterative way to apply my creativity, my curiosity, to make sure we came up with a realization that was going to represent the company effectively. The net of it is the curiosity. The quality of the thought process is something that becomes key to really taking these tools to the next level, so they can be valuable for the business. This is just the beginning of what is possible with these vibe coding platforms. And as many people like to say, this is the worst AI will ever be. And so when I look at it and I think of other situations I've been in as an executive, hey, we need to update the website to respond to a competitive pressure, a change in the market, a compliance change. And it takes weeks to make tweaks or changes with multiple individuals and multiple iterations. While I understand there is a reason for that, the ability to move faster and make decisions to activate the curiosity and creativity in your human capital is far more valuable. Execute, activate, make sure that the awareness of their roles your employees have is something you can leverage to drive the business in new directions and achieve new results. At the end of the day, it's all possible. You just have to approach it in the right way. And it was a reaffirmation for me and our team that it is really the caliber of your vision and your thought, the quality of your application, of your curiosity, your creativity, your own thinking to use these tools to bring to life something that didn't exist before. In the past, websites have cost $50,000 or more. In some cases, I've seen websites cost well into six figures, if not seven. But we were able to do this in 27 hours across 5 days for less than $1,000 and have something that is viable for the business, knowing that we will continue to iterate, that we now are much more agile in our approach, our thinking. So we encourage you to look at some of the other videos that we are doing to help bring to life some of these use cases and understand that waiting is not an option. These tools are continually getting better. And if you're not building this into your organization, you're falling behind. We encourage you to start with one use case. Give us a call. We'll help you figure out what's going to be most effective for you and your business and show you what's possible.